Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Managing and facilitating the movement of employees, skills, and talent across different countries and regions is not an easy task. In this dynamic era of cross-border collaborations and international talent, businesses are facing both challenges and openings on an unprecedented scale, making things a little more complex. So it is imperative to delve deep into the strategies, insights, and real-life anecdotes that illuminate the path to effectively steering through the complexities of global mobility. So settle into your workspace, whether it's a corner office or a cozy home desk, as we unravel the significance of global mobility in the corporate realm. Let's explore how to turn challenges into triumphs and how to embrace a world that's always on the move. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Vantage Influencers Podcast, where we explore a wide range of HR topics that are sure to grab your attention and inspire you. I'm your host, Jyotirmayee Chaturvedi, and today we will be having a conversation on navigating global mobility, how businesses can embrace a world on the move. And for the same, I have with me Jyotirmayee Chaturvedi, Assistant Vice President, Mobility at Genpact. Hi, Jyotirmayee.
Hi, Sanjeevani.
First of all, I want to express my gratitude for your precious time and presence on today's episode. Before delving into today's focal topic, navigating global mobility, would you kindly walk us through your professional journey so far?
Sure, Sanjeevani. And first of all, thanks for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Likewise. So I'm a chartered accountant by professional and hold approximately a decade and a half experience. And all of this has been with mobility, though split into consulting and industry. And over the years, I think I have learned a lot about mobility. When I started, I didn't know anything about it, but now I think every day is spent grilling myself to know a little more about it. And I'm so happy that I've come a long way.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. With your permission, I'd like to delve into the topic.
For sure.
Yeah. Today, we'll be discussing navigating global mobility, how businesses can embrace the world on the move. To get us all started, can you give us a summary of the significance of global mobility in the business context and explain why it's gaining greater importance in the modern era?
Sure. So global mobility, I would say, is precisely movement of employees between geographies. And every organization needs that in today's times because they have the opportunity to tap talent from different geographies. However, I would want to look at it more deeply and hold its much wider meaning. Because when these employees are traveling, along with them travel ideas, experiences, technology. There is intermingling of cultures, and it's absolutely fascinating that there could be so much more to it than what meets the eyes. And perhaps that's the reason why it has gained so much of importance in present times. Because all these movements, these exchanges, they give business benefits like access to talent. So in the competitive world we're in, the businesses are getting pushed to hire and retain the best talent. COVID also taught organizations that their talent pool could not be concentrated to one geography. Hence, organizations are now looking or focusing on the global talent pool to fill those skill gaps and bring in that specialized expertise. Global mobility helps companies here to recruit and retain the best of the employees, regardless of their geographical location. The second would be market expansion. Now, businesses are currently operating in a volatile and uncertain market space You want to term it VUCA, you want to term it BANI, call it whatever, but businesses are actually posed with a big challenge that to stay relevant, they have to diversify, they have to increase their market share, they have to increase their customer base, and all of this requires being physically present in that geography. And global mobility obviously comes to the help because it allows you to place your employees physically in a geography. And what it brings along is that these employees are able to understand the local preferences, the local needs, the cultural nuances, the problem statements, and that helps an organization to tweak and tailor its solution to meet those challenges. And that's perhaps an effective market entry strategy and also a strategy for successful expansion. The third to my mind would be exchange of knowledge. Now, every individual in this world carries unique perspectives, ideas, and experiences. When, as an organization, you foster collaboration and knowledge sharing among employees from these different backgrounds, you're actually fueling creativity. You're actually telling them to adapt to the changes. Imagine a situation where people from all backgrounds are sitting together. You give them a problem statement, the solution that will come out of it, I'm sure that would be a wow factor for anyone.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I'd say people development. Now, when I say modern day organizations, they would typically need leaders or they would typically need individuals who can demonstrate adaptability, sensitivity, inclusion, spontaneity, and all of this along with the technical expertise. So when you provide employees that global opportunity, it enhances their cross-cultural understanding, their adaptability, and leadership skills. And this helps bridge that skill gap and enables the employees to become effective leaders in a global context. And lastly, I would say that mobility also provides agility to an organization. Agility, to my mind, would be a combination of speed, adaptability, and resilience. Now, when you expose employees to multiple situations, multiple business models, multiple locations, they learn to adapt to different situations and they become more culturally, cross-culturally sound. And all of this basically all helps in rampant sharing of ideas, keeping them updated with changes, and therefore making the organizations move, giving them the edge in the market space, basically.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you again, in today's day and age, companies are going big on diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
So they are implementing policies regarding DE&I. So do you think that this particular kind of mobility, say, this global mobility, would help to really make diversity and inclusion efforts bigger and better?
I would say absolutely. When at the crux of diversity, equity, inclusion is bringing together people from different backgrounds,
yes.
different ethnicities, different races, different nationalities, and nothing could be better than global mobility because you are able to bring people to one spot from different geographies to share their ideas, their perspectives. So certainly global mobility does help with the DE&I initiatives.
Yeah. So thank you for underscoring the significance of the concept so lucidly. In the landscape of workforce mobility spanning various nations and regions, could you share some notable trends that you've identified along the way? Specifically, we'd love to hear about the patterns you've noticed in the employees' movement and placement. Furthermore, could you elaborate on how these trends are impacting businesses on a global scale?
So Sanjeevni, I would really want to bucketize these trends. Like you said, the people movement trends, the technological trends, and certainly the regulatory trends. Now, talking about the trends with respect to people movement, there is a shift from long-term assignments to shorter ones. People nowadays are also exploring opportunities to work remotely. And I believe that as more and more millennials will join the job scene, we will see a shift towards gig workers. And honestly, a lot of countries have already recognized this and have introduced something that we refer as digital nomad visas. And if I were to go by OECD research paper from 2022, Estonia was the first OECD country to introduce such a visa, and that was in August 2020. Since then, 6 OECD countries and at least 22 non-OECD countries have come up with similar visas. While most of these visas were launched in response to COVID-19 related travel restrictions, but the trend is here to stay. Moving to technological trends. Now, automation, digitization, they have been the buzzwords for a while. But we are now talking about artificial intelligence. A lot of work's been done and a lot of it is underway. But it simply enthralls me to think, where could we reach in times to come with AI? AI could just prove to be so useful with multiple aspects like employee orientations and cultural training. We could tweak the sessions to meet a specific employee's requirements rather than those pre-prepared presentations or videos that convey a message to the employees. Likewise, it could also help with streamlining the administrative tasks. Every global mobility professional would agree with me that when it comes to execution, we deal with volumes and huge volumes. And that certainly takes a lot of time and sometimes seems to be stifling the time for personal growth. But AI just loves repetitive tasks. So you could partake some of your work towards AI and perhaps it can perform it with better tact and accuracy too. Besides that, I would say AI can certainly improve employee experience because mobility staff could not be present everywhere and every time. But if you feed in that information, that knowledge with bots, with chatbots, employees have the ability to get their question, the answers to their questions real time. It may be devoid of human experience, but I think getting that initial advice is very helpful for someone to hook on to. And lastly, I would say that it could also help enhance the decision-making process. Every global mobility professional carries with it a lot of information in terms of their researches, their experiences, and if all of this could be put into a system, imagine the kind of ease with which past experiences could be used to guide way for future. My experiences could be used by someone who's working in my position 3 to 5 years down the line. Likewise, I could use somebody's experiences who was working in the same position, let's say, a decade earlier. And that's like without hassle-free. Now, quickly moving to the regulatory trends, I would first of all pick up immigration. From an immigration perspective, we've seen that across the globe, the countries have eased the restrictions and the world is trying to come back to the pre-pandemic state. However, what I also believe that COVID did result in a skill gap. And therefore, we see some countries in the European region reducing the minimum salary levels to attract foreign talent. From tax perspective, we've honestly not seen much, but I am hopeful and I'm rather certain that we should see changes in times to come to govern the compliance challenges that remote working brings along. Because it could be something on similar lines as we see the framework agreement that's just become effective in July in the European Union, which very clearly lays out how the social security compliances for cross-border workers would work. And the last would be on the regulatory perspective would be privacy regulations. And that's another area that's picking up. India also has its data privacy law, which just got effective last week. So the kind of information we share in today's world is huge and it's getting shared very rapidly. And therefore, such laws are welcome as they help protect the sensitive data of employees that we own. And besides this, as you already spoke, mobility could contribute to the D&I initiatives. There's a concept of sustainable mobility that is picking pace, and it is a well contributor to the ESG goals that the organizations tend to achieve. So these trends actually reflect the evolving nature of work and the growing importance of talent mobility, honestly.
Great. So apart from immigration laws or taxation regulations, there are also employment laws that comes into play. So employment laws and regulations again vary from country to country. Working hours, compensation benefits, again termination for that matter. So how can HRs can work on making this particular front work for the employers who will be relocated to a different place? So is any training or guidance provided, or any particular structures given to the employees?
So I would say that international assignments could be very isolating and stressful for employees. And what the HRs could really bring along is, or the initiatives they could bring along is in form of cultural trainings. So providing a pre-departure cultural training to employees could actually prove to be very helpful.
Yes, because working hours again, could differ, I mean, to quite an extent, their working cultures and everything.
Absolutely. But I also believe, Sanjeevani, that besides familiarizing assignees with the cultural norms of the host location, it is equally important to apprise them how is it distinct from their culture. Because most trainings would tend to cover some aspects. But if you tell employees how their culture is different from that of the host location, they could perhaps use their judgment if they are put in a situation.
Yes.
Likewise, HRs could also help with organize basically language trainings. No one can become proficient in any language overnight, but we should target to give employees that working level of knowledge, because they are going to a location to stay, they're not visiting, which means they have to maneuver the daily situations and they have to interact with the commons, and you therefore ought to know the language of the commons. It will also help you develop that connect with the local employees, local population with which you're surrounded. Another thing that one could do is create a cohort of volunteers. So this could contain 3 categories of employees. One who've traveled in the past, have already repatriated, those whose assignment is ongoing, and the new ones who are now going on an assignment. I believe there are a lot of questions that the new assignees would have, or these ongoing assignment holders would have, can be sorted within this cohort. And it will also give some level of comfort to the person that he knows few of his colleagues, seniors in the new location. And that's very comforting for anybody who's traveling to a completely alien geography. One thing that I think that most of the times does not happen, we tend to select employees for an assignment basis their technical skill set.
Yes.
However, to my mind, going on an assignment requires a completely different aptitude, and not everyone can adjust in new surroundings so well or is comfortable maybe living out of the suitcase. Hence, an aptitude test, I believe, can go a long way to select the right set of candidates with the right mindset so that they can also complete their assignments successfully.
Yes, well said. Again, I believe this aspect of doing business is not free from challenges.
Right.
As businesses expand their horizons globally, the management of a mobile workforce presents its own set of complexities. So could you help us identify the challenges frequently encountered in this arena? And it would be great if you could offer valuable insights into effective strategies for surmounting them. Our listeners would be eager to take note of the strategies you have to offer in navigating the intricacies.
Sure, Sanjeevani. I'll try my best. So, I think there are few challenges which cut across all businesses, besides the specific challenges that every organization may have. And that would be one, the first and foremost would be cost challenges. Because it's well known that any assignment brings along with it additional costs in terms of cost of living allowance, assignment related benefits, relocation costs, tax equalization costs. Hence, it's very imperative for the businesses to understand these costs upfront so that their margins aren't impacted. The strategy to meet this challenge would be try local hiring because that tends to be lower on costs, or maybe try shorter assignments where you can get benefits, the treaty benefits and the totalization agreement benefits, should one exist. The other challenge I would believe would be human challenges. And I think I was just talking about a while back that these assignments could be stressful and isolating.
Yes.
And there could be situations where there is a complete communication breakdown owing to cultural differences. And there could be personal situations that an employee is put into. Hence, like I pointed out a while back, it will be important if the organizations do arrange for cultural trainings, local language trainings, creating a network, mentorship. And that's where I think global mobility professionals do a great job and are expected to discharge duty of care, provide that support and hand-holding to employees.
Yes.
I think it's all about planning and planning better.
Great.
The third, I would say, would be the regulatory challenges. And each time an employee travels or makes a move, there is actually an interplay of multiple factors that's happening. The country combination, employee's nationality, and all of this has a bearing on the processes. So like immigration, it could differ for people coming from different nationalities. Tax compliances, you need to understand the local laws, whether a treaty exists, can you take a benefit, what are the employer compliances, what are the kind of registrations, and the list can go on. Likewise, social security. Again, this is a very important factor because in most of the geographies and rather than all the countries, you will see that there is a portion of employer contribution too, which adds to the overall cost of assignment. What is also important to understand that can the employees withdraw these contributions when they leave, because otherwise it's effectively a sunk cost. And lastly, we just spoke about a while back the privacy regulations. So a lot of countries have come up with this, and while the intent of all the regulations is same, that is to safeguard the personally identifiable information, but the provisions and the way they are implemented, they could absolutely differ. So it's very important that we understand, we read through them. And the only strategy to navigate the regulatory challenges would be to stay updated, to stay abreast with the changes, and also socialize and communicate this to the businesses so that you can, in tandem with them, evaluate the impact of these changes.
Perfect. So I think you'll agree with me on the fact that facilitating employees' cultural adaptation when relocated to new places is again crucial. Especially for businesses to ensure smoother transitions and at the same time maintaining productivity in diverse work environments. So could you delve into the strategies and approaches that businesses can implement to facilitate a seamless transition for their employees during relocation for work purposes?
So I think we spoke about a while back on this, and I would just maybe navigate again through the similar points. I would say that I would now break it into pre-departure or pre-assignment, during assignment, and post-assignment aspects. The pre-assignment aspects would be similar as we spoke about the cultural trainings, the language trainings, which help employees adapt to the situations better and reduce the level of stress they might just encounter because of traveling to a completely alien geography. During the assignment, you could provide employees that hand-holding in terms of the compliances that they're expected to do. Imagine you've been uprooted from your country and now you have to maybe file a tax return, get yourself registered for a tax identification number or a social security number, or maybe just you don't know what's the kind of pay you will get on a month-to-month basis so that you can manage your finances. If the organizations could better handhold employees, it will be a much pleasurable experience for employees on a whole from a assignment perspective. And post-assignment, post-repatriation, I would say organizations need to focus on inclusion of these employees, on reinstating these employees back into a role which suits their experience that they've gained overseas. So you employees should not be left in lurch that if they're leaving at a particular level for an assignment, once they come back, they'll be reinstated at the same level. They should get their due, which they have earned over the years whilst they've been on assignment. So I think those would be a couple of things that could help navigate the entire assignment life cycle.
Yeah. So Jyotirmayee, we are arriving at the end of today's episode. But before we let you go, there is one last question that both our listeners and I would love to know your take on. And the question is, how do you envision the landscape of global mobility evolving in the coming years? And what should businesses do to prepare for these changes?
Wow, that's an interesting one. And when you ask me this, I think I just struggle to think about it because I've been talking about the uncertain environment, the volatile environment. So there are a lot of changes happening and there are a lot of trends that have started to show up. But I think the couple of ones, the top ones that I see coming our way in future is one, technology will impact assignments and business travelers. And that is to say, during COVID, we saw the usage of applications like Zoom, MS Teams, and that got a lot of importance, and it also impacted the travel pattern. When we speak of assignments, they are not always cost efficient. And hence, whenever businesses can manage the work offshore by utilizing these applications, they would obviously choose to do so. So the assignments which are not very integral and which could be managed from offshore, those assignments would rather not happen, and employees would rather interact with the client, with the customer through these technologies to work from offshore. The other would be the type of assignments. We've touched upon this briefly. The long-term assignments, like I said, would be far and few. The businesses will now focus on shorter assignments. Likewise, remote work, hybrid setup is something which is here to stay. And we as global mobility professionals will need to continue analyzing and filling for these compliance needs for such arrangements. The third, I would say, would be the use of technology and AI. We spoke how we could use AI for various aspects in global mobility. And I think process automations would be the new thing which will take away a lot of the regular and repetitive work from the plate of global mobility professionals, allowing them to focus on better learnings and on the larger strategies. And lastly, I would say that mobility will and should find its way to the strategic decision-making table, because it contributes not only to the organization's success, facilitating businesses, but it also helps achieve the various other goals, like we spoke about DNI, DENI, ESG, and maybe just gain business that edge in the entire industry. To prepare for these changes, I think businesses will have to invest heavily in technology. They will have to develop flexible policies where they can attract diversified talent, provide global mobility teams that space in decision making, and the most important, so last but not the least, staying agile. You learn, you adapt, you fall, you learn, you adapt, you fall. And I think that's the key to success.
Success, yes. So thanks for sharing your perspective on this. It has been very insightful. So we have reached the end of today's podcast. Do you have any message for our listeners? Our listeners will be delighted to hear it from you. Also, our audience might want to stay in touch with you post this podcast. So it would be great if you could tell them how they can reach out to you.
Sure, Sanjeevani. I think the message that I would say is, and I think that's driven a lot because I've been a global mobility professional and all of us will agree, it's all about unlearning, then again learning, adapting, then again unlearning, because the world is on such speed, it's changing with such a speed. So just stay open, just stay curious, keep learning, keep unlearning, and keep adapting to the changes. that would be the message. And if somebody wants to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn with a similar name, Jyotrmayee Chaturvedi, or you could reach out to me on my email, which is jyotirmayee84@gmail.com.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure to have you as our guest today. Your insights and expertise have been invaluable, and we are grateful for the time you've taken to share your knowledge with our listeners. So thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sanjeevani. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.